Our live stream as well.
So what are we at?
Okay, so currently on the
Have we got a move to go out?
yeah, we need to move.
I'll move
to,
that we resume.
Before he wants to say something.
He wants to say something first before we go out.
Oh, do you want to say something?
no one resumes their business and we can.
So yes, move.
So yeah,
You move to
Resume.
resume. Then
So, yes.
standing orders.
second, Councillor Peel. All those in favour?
Unanimous, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. So previously on the board we had Councillor Edwards' motion in relation and Councillor Brunt requested that we section the two apart, have them up on the screen. Yeah.
And
So-
so,
It's not plugged in.
Taken into consideration and looking up certain areas, I think we'll decide to put it all up as a whole. Okay?
And then you'll foreshadow on that.
Yeah. And then
Before the recommendation, we'll just be this one.
And then foreshadow, of course, so council should foreshadow afterwards. So that it would resume back to the original motion. Or original recommendation, should I say.
Has Councillor Brunt had her 5 minutes now?
Sorry?
what was that?
Has Councillor Brunt had her 5 minutes?
What was my, no, I beg your pardon.
You said, has Councillor Brunt had her
No, we
phone?
don't know when it was all cancelled.
But speaking
Speaking
of
to
You're
them.
mid.
Because you're the second of the motion.
Well, I don't know where we were.
Right, you were speaking when you asked to just 2 minutes.
yeah.
You're speaking.
You were only asking about splitting it up.
You seconded the motion?
Am I still going to speak?
Yeah,
Yes. Is it you?
Mr Mayor, can I ask how much time she has left?
she spoke for 2 minutes 45.
Oh. Not being one to one. Still got a problem with putting it all up together. Because somebody might want to vote on part of that, or we'll just put up a new, put up a new one with that recommendation in it. I'm happy to accept that.
Does anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Hill?
Well, I've got to say I feel physically sick that this has been brought here today. This didn't take 2 minutes to put together. This took a long time. And we had some sort of sense 6 weeks ago, people in the community in Merton North told me that Councillor Edwards was talking about a proposition with them, and yet she refused to bring that to the council group to discuss it. And then she puts something like this on the table and expects councillors to just vote through a who knows what's in that budget with 5 minutes to look at it. It's totally inappropriate behaviour. Now I'd like to make a few rebuttals. Start with Councillor Brunt, who didn't say much really to rebut, but the 3.8 million, that is renewal funding. Councillor Brunt said that's including upgrades. It doesn't include upgrades. The upgrades are identified on the master plan. The master plan shows renewals and upgrades. And the upgrades, for example, would be the hydro room and the gym room that's been not built as part of the 3.8 million. So it is totally misleading and incorrect to say that 3.8 includes upgrades. Nothing to do with upgrades. It is renewal. Merton North has had nothing spent on it in the last 15 years, nothing spent on it in the next 15 years on new things other than the $400,000 community budgeting program. And now Councillor Edwards stands up and suggests we should take a quarter of the existing pool away from the community. If you do not put the 3.8 million towards that pool, it will not happen. I'll go on to elaborate why later. Where did the 3.8 come from when there was a 1.9 number in the budget in the previous years? Because that was a placeholder number until we get to the 4 years before something gets built in the 15-year works. There's placeholder numbers in there, just guesses. Then, when it gets closer, the engineering team get together and they get proper costings worked out, and that is what happened. And this is the figure to do the renewals. The renewals. There's been questions of, oh, but the community, they need to put a bit of skin in the game and do a bit of support. That community works damn hard up there. They've been working for that pool forever. know because for the last 4 years I've been working with that pool committee, and I know how much effort they go in to working for that pool and that community. The 600 people in the community turned out 6 years ago when this council wanted to close the pool. That community concern is still there. They support their pool, and the pool committee does heaps and heaps of work. It is so poor to say that community needs to put some skin in the game. That pool is being renewed with this 3.8 million. Now, lobby for funds. Councillor Edwards said working in partnership with the community. She espouses working in partnership with the community. This is not working in partnership with the community. This is taking from the community and distributing it elsewhere. And I have no reason to know why she's choosing those particular projects other than to take it from the Bourbon North community. Where's the collaboration, Councillor Edwards, with your council to dump this on us today? Now, if you reduce that 3.8, what you've effectively done is cut the services to that community. Will the pool get built if that 3.8 is not funded? No, it won't. I'll tell you why. Because you're going to allocate a large grant funding number to it. And you know full well that if a project doesn't get its grant funding, the project doesn't happen. I could quote you an example that's happened in this council, that you know that full well. So you know that if they have grant funding, other than the 200,000 which the government is for pools, if you put any higher figure on from the 3.8, starting to grant funding, you know that pool will not get built because it will keep getting put back saying each year, sorry, we couldn't get the funding, we'll put it back another year. Now, other practicalities conducting this on us today. This is a massive change and not one moment of consultation with the community about it. Even though you know for the last 6 weeks that you've been planning to do this, not one mention in the community of what you're proposing. Also, if this is approved, this council by law would have to put out Section 223 process again and give the community a chance to respond to this.
Councillor Hill, you've reached your 5 minutes.
Right, that's pretty quick. So just in closing, yes, you would have to redo the Section 223 process.
Thank you.
Ask the
Any
question.
other speakers? Councillor Hill.
Thank you very much. Whilst I believe that Councillor Edwards does come from a good heart, she does believe in the best interest of South Gippsland. I think that what she's proposed here today is dysfunctional and it doesn't actually aim to achieve any of the goals that we've collaboratively set out in our council plan. I think it's misguided in the way that she's tried to present it at the last minute, and some may feel it's somewhat underhanded. I think it's dysfunctional in the behaviour to try and, at the last minute, tell us how we should put money to roads and footpaths. My issue is procedure. If we haven't been able to properly, succinctly discuss, determine and come up with the outcome, then why would we put a council policy and plan in place that says that that's what we're going to do? It's like disagreeing with yourself. I mean, I prefer that we don't do that. My issue is, furthermore than that, is that all of the attributes that Councillor Edward raised, this does the opposite. This doesn't follow a procedure. This doesn't allow for the community's voices to be heard. This doesn't allow for everyone to have their input into debate to determining the best interest and the best outcome for South Gippsland. So my issue here is that I really and truly, I must implore my fellow councillors to actually understand the content of what they are saying. When you are saying that you would like to have the best interest of South Gippsland at heart, think through what that means. Think through that all of the people that have done all of the work, including all of the public servants, including the council plan, including everything, to be dismissed at the last second with really, and the time that it takes, the extra time, if we structure things properly, we can have these debates together, we can hear each other's point of view, where they can be taken into account, and we can be implementing things in the best interest of the region efficiently and effectively. And I can assure you that I understand the English that I am using when I say this. We need to collaboratively work together. We need to, when you say collaboration, it doesn't mean wait till 1 second before the end of the day on the council plan just before we vote it through. I've got an essay that I wish to propose, which I haven't discussed with my fellow councillors, or all of them. So on that basis, I ask my fellow councillors to dismiss this whole situation, because if we don't dismiss this particular motion, then we are giving wind to dysfunctionality. And I don't think that is in the best interests of our region. And I will say this, I do believe that Councillor Edwards has done this from good intent, but I just do not believe that the execution is warranted in any way, shape or form to show any form of support for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Rich. More councillors? Councillor Keogh?
Sorry, Andrew. I know Councillor McKeown was before me. How do you take emotion out of this whole issue? The Moving North Pool is the heart of Moving North. It is our community hub, it is our meeting place. We have a lot of functions at the pool. For me, this is obviously politics at its best. The element of surprise has certainly taken a lot of us that way today. It's unfortunate that we weren't able to be open and discuss as many times. We've all said that we weren't interested in surprises, that it was best if we had time to look at the proposals that are coming forward. So it is a little disappointing to cop this at the last minute with and try and get our heads all around it. I'd like to just bring up the childcare centre at Carramburra. The childcare centre, $5.9 million was put into that, of which $2.5 million came from council, and they had a community contribution of $100,000. Now, Carramburra has a population of 4,153 from the 2011 census. Moving North has a population of 2,215. There are 250 school children at the primary school, 350 at the secondary college. And in this case, the community have put their hand up to say that they are prepared to raise $500,000. $500,000 from 2,215 people is no mean feat. We were advised in the community that our contribution would probably be around about $380,000, which was 10% of the overall cost. The community as a whole have managed to say that they would like to put forward the $500,000 as a show of good faith for the size of this project. I would also like to urge everyone to vote against this motion and to get the Moving North Pool to the stage where it is something that we're all quite proud to have in our shire, and it benefits not just the Moving North community, but we draw in people from the valley. A lot of schools come to do their swimming sports there, and it really is the showcase, should be the showcase of the shire. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Keogh. Councillor Skinner, and I'll
Thank you. That's a big long amendment that does have implications. I actually believe Councillor Edwards spoke really articulately on the matter. I have no problem with the theory of looking at co-contributions from our community members, and as we call it, putting skin in the game, I suppose. I don't think we can really look at it as in, this town's got that, this town's got that, well, it's our turn now. Equally, I could say around the coastal regions, well, we don't want a pool, but are you going to give us $4 million? No, it doesn't work like that. So I think it's reasonable to have a look at where it's actually a budget principle, 7.4, to the guidelines set out the key budget principles on which the officers will prepare their budgets, which included that new revenue sources are to be identified wherever possible. So I think that we ought to be doing that. I have no problem with, in theory, this. I wouldn't like to make a decision on the way that's allocated because I haven't had enough time to actually think about that particular part of it. Yeah, so my understanding is that we will have an opportunity to review the budget next year, and we can, I'm certainly in favour of investing in our communities, and the pool to Melbourne North is an important asset. So it's not about that, we're talking now about the budget. So I'd probably just like to review it next year and work out, is there any way that we can co-fund it, etc. So in theory, it's not a bad proposal, but it's a lot, three big things there to think about with the budget. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Skinner. Councillor McKeown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's two really fundamental things here. One is, this is a substantial change, and under the Act, what that means is that we have to go back out to the community for another period of consultation at the 9th or 10th hour, or whatever. So that's one thing. If we vote for this, we have to not pass, sorry, we have to take the budget back out for consultation for another 4 weeks. And it's important. That's what our community plan says. We do things in engagement, in partnership with the community. The second thing is, this is fundamentally a vote for closing the pool. It is a vote, excuse me, I'm speaking. It is a vote for closing the pool because if you look at the funding sources that are available for
Point of order.
Yes,
Well, it's misinformation.
so what is the
It's misinformation. Just a moment, and it's right up the front in the chair's duty. It's objection 48B. It's really objectionable in language and intent because our aquatic strategy says we will renew the pools. That's what it says. To make that statement that we're going to close them down is absolutely and utterly incorrect.
48, that's a motion.
Yeah, I know.
can't accept that.
You know my point that that is totally incorrect information.
If I was allowed to finish the sentence, it is a vote for closure because the funding for pools has got a maximum amount of $200,000. So what that means is that we'll never be able to reach that point, and therefore the only outcome is closure. If you try it with a smaller budget, we run into other problems because if you do 50% of the pool work, or half the renewal, you then have to close the pool because you have, if you go over 50% renewal, you have to actually have disability access. But for two reasons, I believe the inevitable outcome of this will come to closing the pool. We have a pool policy which, in fact, Councillor Brunt voted for. What it says is, whether you agree with it or don't disagree with it, that we will renew the pools. And there will be some community contribution, which Councillor Keel has referred to. It is consistent with the policy. You do not, on the run, make an individual decision outside of the policy that we've adopted as a council. If you look at the question of equity, and I've almost completed looking at 27 years of figures, this sum of money represents 50% almost of the funds that Mervu has received or will receive over that 27-year period. If they don't get this 3.9 million, they are massively under in terms of dollars spent per capita or per household or per rates raised. It is, in my view, a shame because it's introducing an element of inequity and it's not doing it systematically. If you look at the coastal towns, Venus Bay and Tarwalloa are in the same boat. They've got a massive underfunding. The one that's got the huge amount of funding is Leongatha, which is drawing about 50% of the new capital works, and we're prepared to spend 3.5 million with the council, with the grant, which I don't think we get also, on Splash extending its losses from 400,000 a year to nearly 550,000 a year. I don't disagree with the sentiment that we should be looking at diverting more funds to roads, to footpaths and to basic infrastructure. But it has to be done in a planned, coordinated manner, and we have to do it in a financially prudent manner. This is just policy on the run. The reality is our plan and the way we should be doing things is in partnership with communities, not making ad hoc decisions at the last minute. And as I said, the implications of this is twofold. One, we will have to go out to a Section 232 budget hearing again, and the other is it is likely that the outcome of this process, if this passes, is that the pool closes. And I can't support that.
Thanks. Any other councillors? Councillor Brown?
I'd like to speak against the proposed amendment. I have to concur with Councillor Richard's summation that Councillor Edwards comes from a really good heart, and I think she has good intentions. I think the process has been forward, none of us had any consultation. This is a large change to the budget. And I think she's right to point out that it is a lot of money that Movement North are getting. But if you put it into context, as Councillor Keel summed up really well, it is a multi-use facility. It's not just a swimming pool. It will be used as a community meeting place at various times of the year. So if you actually put that into a context, it's not just a swimming pool. It's actually quite good value for money, because it will probably end up being in the future some form of community hub, if you like. So if you put that into context, it is fair that they're getting this money, and I think the Movement North community generally feel that if they get this project, they're fairly content. Like this is what they want out of us. So I think given all those factors, and also the fact that we just haven't had time to consider this, I have to go against it.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Edwards, do you wish to
Point of order is an amendment, so it doesn't get a vote.
No, it's an alternate motion.
Motion, so I'll take my vote.
That's the motion, so does the right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I recognise that this is not going to get up today, but what I don't want to do is hoodwink the community. And I actually find it quite astounding, that a month ago we had numerous motions put to us on the fly by the same people who are now telling me today that they feel sick of all this up.
She's not talking to her motion.
What's your point?
63, she's not talking to the anyway.
There was no way that I could have brought
Sit
this.
down. Sorry. It's just debate, it's not relevant to the motion.
Councillor Hill is quite correct. It's not relevant to the motion. Please speak on the motion.
I would have loved to have brought this up previously, but there are a number of councillors who have already shared their position on this item. I've been harassed by social media messages from one of my colleagues. I've been physically threatened for not supporting one councillor.
Point of order.
What point of order?
She needs to sit down.
No, that's his decision. No, she can have a right to reply.
I'm making a point of order. In Section 106, the Chair's duties and discretions, in addition to other duties and discretions provided in this local law, the Chair must not accept any motion, question or statement which appears to the Chair to be derogatory or defamatory to any councillor, member of staff, ratepayer or member of the public or any organisation. Must call to order any person who is disruptive or unruly during any meeting. I put it to you, Mr. Mayor, that Councillor Edwards is about to be defamatory by the councillors if she's not already done so, and she's out of order.
Yes, I'm all in favour of that, Councillor. Please.
I was not about to name any particular councillor.
To the topic.
I am completely.
Point of order. I don't know if you 63 say what? I don't think that naming of a particular councillor matters. When you have passed an assertion towards any other councillor, that is derogatory towards your fellow councillors. Point. I got a ruling on that.
Where was that?
Same one.
No,
Another
you
one, same
call
one
the
without, you don't have to specify a name, we're just saying you can't be, yeah. She went straight again, do it again.
Councillor Edwards, please, to the topic and to your motion.
I am completely supportive of the Mervyn North Pool. We haven't investigated. I understand that part of the reason why the cost has blown out is because of the disability access. Have we investigated alternative options of not necessarily having to dismantle all of the kiosks? Have we investigated the option of staging this?
Point of order, relevant to the topic of the budget plan being passed rather than the actual debating of the internal aspects of the plan.
So my point is, I know this is not going to get up today, but my point is, let's not hoodwink the community. Let's allow them to start to fundraise and have a goal set. Let's allow the trigger of applying for funds to start to happen, because if we don't have a figure in there of income, then we don't allow those things to start. We have a responsibility of ratepayers' money to do the right thing for all the ratepayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Okay. Time to put it to the vote. All those in favour of Councillor Edwards' motion?
Councillor Edwards.
Councillor Edwards. Those against?
Good vote.
Councillor Keele, Councillor Rich, Councillor Brown, Councillor Gento, Councillor Hill, Councillor Skinner, Councillor Brunt and Councillor McEwen.
So the motion is lost.
Can I move a new motion? We've got to move the budget.
Yes.
Mr Mayor, can I move the budget with a slight amendment
I
to take?
was just about to start.
Yeah, Councillor Brunt was speaking for us.
With an amendment, please, which is the last few things on that other one.
Oh, 0.5.
Yeah, but
Five.
0.5, yeah.
5, 6 and 7, wasn't it?
Yes.
No, that's 6 and 7 already in the original.
Right, yeah, can you put the addition in there, on this budget, please? And I'll move that.
Mr Mayor, can we please go back to the original one? This is going around in circles. She does not have support for
I
this.
think we need to.
I do.
We'll go through
We
this.
don't know that there's support until such time as we vote on it. There's no point of order. I'm moving.
There's no point of order. Move
No.
the motion.
I'll second it.
Have you got it up there now, right?
Nearly there.
5, 6 and 7?
Right.
No, just
That's
5.
This is the original
This is the
motion
original motion.
with the addition of point,
Oh, thank you.
which is, deals with the 59,
Which we
with the, whatever it was.
That the decision we already made today.
Yeah, because it's mentioned.
So, Councillor Edwards, you step with that.
Yeah, I'm happy to second that.
Get it right.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to move a formal.
Please proceed for a moment.
I'd like to move a formal motion.
We have a motion on.
No, we can't accept it.
I can move a formal motion.
There hasn't been debate on the budget, sufficient debate.
We have a
On
motion.
78,
You move an amendment.
I'm moving a
So we have no debate on that.
no, I'm moving a formal motion.
Are you foreshadowing for?
No, I'm moving point 78, proceeding to the next business.
No.
Motion that the meeting proceeds to the next business, and it's a formal motion. If it's passed in response to an amendment, which is what Councillor Brown is doing, it disposes of the amendment immediately and permits debate on the original motion to proceed. I think this will certainly be a lot of waste of time.
This has been moved and seconded, my motion's been moved and seconded, and it absolutely, it picks up an anomaly from what happened with 2.1, the rescission notice this morning. We have to move this with the amendment, not the amendment, the additional.
Yes.
Yes. And I would like to continue.
Yeah.
I'll move the formal motion.
Hang on a minute, yeah.
You can rule on that.
Well, just could you, Stella, could you please clarify for those? Yeah.
Okay, Mr Mayor, through you, what Council has before it now is a motion moved by Councillor Brunt, which is the recommended motion in the Council agenda, but it has incorporated another point which has been included at point 2, which is to fix up the anomaly we discussed earlier, where note that the 17-18 annual budget is to be restored to incorporate any changes arising from the resolution 59.2 from the 24th of May 2017 special meeting, being ruled invalid by the Mayor as it is contradictory to the Local Government Act 1989 So if you take out what Natasha's highlighted in yellow there before you, you have the recommendation that was put forward in the council agenda as word for word. I hope that makes sense. Is there any further explanation of what Mr. Mayor?
Everyone understand that? Okay, so given that we have a seconder, I'm happy to.
I'll just speak on the budget.
But before doing so, Mr. Mayor, perhaps I need to rule on Councillor Hill's.
Yes, that's fair enough.
Which I have, it's just that we've had a seconder.
You're not accepting.
It's not accepted. Okay, I just
Right,
want to make
let's
that.
move on.
Formal motion
You're gonna put that in.
needs to be voted on.
No, it's up to the mayor, isn't it?
It's not up to the mayor.
I'm happy for this motion to.
Continue.
So, I'm sorry, we need to know our laws. I made a formal motion, you need to put it to vote.
What are you referring to? And I couldn't, local law, process number. Sorry, what?
Page 22.
It can be dealt with immediately by the chair. 76A.
I made a
76A.
formal motion to proceed to the next business, which means to carry in respect to this amendment, rules this amendment out and go back to the original budget matter. That needs to be voted on. And I'd like to foreshadow that I was proposing a change to that clause as well, that would take account of that.
Mr. Mayor, it's procedural. The mayor decides. It's not a vote. 76A.
Mr. CEO is advised that he has to put that vote. It's
It's the chair to decide.
Motion may be moved at any time and must be dealt with immediately by the chair. That's not a vote.
Vote. It's the chair decides.
No, it's not chair decides, the chair has to act on it and put it to the vote.
It
No.
doesn't say you have to put it to the vote.
No. The formal motion doesn't even need a seconder. It's up to the chair. It's up to the chair.
Sorry, councillor, I was all about that.
Right, can we go?
Which is how I asked to proceed first.
10 pages down
That's right, absolutely. See,
Let's go. We'll get something about the budget. Our budget, our council plan is what drives our budget, a lot of our budget. Yeah? Our budget must be supported by our council, I'm repeating myself, council plan. The 16-17 budget, it's a 17-18 budget, most importantly is a sustainable budget for next year and beyond into the life of the long-term financial plan. The previous council positioned this council in a good financial position. The major change, and I'll repeat, the major political change to our budget has been removing the municipal precinct. Savings from abandoning the municipal precinct project has been reallocated to a number of projects in the forward budget over the next 4 years in the long-term financial plan. Our capital works program has increased by 22.7 million for this budget, this proposed budget, as opposed to last year, the 16-17 budget, which was 20 million. That's basically almost a $2 million increase in capital works expenditure. In forward budgets, there is and will be opportunity to look at service levels that we provide. And I'll reference you back to Hacks and Vicks and Caravan Parks. No decisions have been made, but that they will, quite possibly some of that may impact on service levels. Employee costs have been set at 2% as per the EBA over the coming years, and this is in line with rate capping. The rates council collect will be much similar in this forward year for this budget, but of course the revaluation in CIVs will influence individual levels of rate rises. It transfers 1.25 million into reserves. That's our cash position at the end of June 2018 will be 7.99 million. almost 8 million, as compared to 15.8 million in the previous year. The budget does show pressure in the latter years of the long-term financial year. The operating results are in decline. The original municipal precinct was partly funded by external grants and reserves. Subsequently, there was never a spare 32 million. That now is more than evident. When comparing capital expenditure for the first 4 years of this long-term financial plan to the previous budget, it has increased. Expenditure in that 4 years has increased 16.8 million. And to move more expenditure forward for political reasons is irresponsible because of the pressure on the working capital ratio. Page 78 of this budget is one of the most interesting pages. It shows the reallocation of the municipal precinct monies over the next 4 years, although 5.625 million is to support the RSL, what is it, an MOU, office, maybe whatever the way forward in that is, and revamp and accommodate office accommodation. That's been put aside. We've got the Equestrian Centre and Expo Centre business case to be formed. Once again, there's not a lot of money that council needs to supply to that project. I hope the business case comes out well. I'm sure in forming the next budget, this new council will be more astute and understand the politics of council better and be more aware. So I'll put it to you that we move, councillors, this budget as is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brunt. Councillor Edwards. So, any other speakers in regards to?
So, Mr. Mayor, in respect to Councillor Hill's motion that the matter proceeds to the next business, part 78 in the local law, that is a formal motion that should be voted on, and if successful, then the chair must direct that we move to the next item on the agenda. So it does require a vote, yes. Now I've had time to do a little bit of research and cross-referencing. Thank you. Sorry for the delay, Councillor Hill.
Okay, so we go back to the vote in relation to...
So it gets voted on the...
So can I just clarify that this would be a vote to move past the amended proposal amendment back to the original to vote on it? Yes, so therefore we're clear. If we vote yes to this,
no, this is to move to the next order of business.
So we just don't pass the council budget off.
Exactly.
No, that's not true.
I disagree.
Quite clear. What this does, if this formal motion is approved, then this amendment is disposed of, and we go back to the original motion. Excuse me.
I think it's a motion too.
Go back to the original one.
Mr. Mayor, I've read this thoroughly, and I can assure you that the motion before council is a motion, it's not an amendment. Because Councillor Brunt moved the recommendation with a change. For it to be an amendment, we would have had the recommendation moved, and then we would now be debating whether that addition will be included. But because it was moved in a block, here's the motion before the chair. So
the question is this.
Sorry, Councillor Hill. So then under Part B says, so what we have here is a formal motion. If carried in respect of a formal motion, that is proceeding to the next item of business if that's successful, if carried in respect of the original motion, requires the chair to direct the meeting to the next item of business, which means you would dispose of the current matter before the chair, which is the budget, and the budget would not then be voted on, and we'd have to bring that to the next council meeting.
So how can we get through the
so
just to the main vote and get it done?
If supported, we move to the next item, the budget doesn't get discussed, and we have to then retable it at the next meeting.
Do you wish to move that
It's just a waste of time. Oddly enough.
I wish to withdraw that. We just withdraw that and then to move an amendment to this motion up on the board now.
Give that.
No, what he did now needs to do is he put his amendment up and ask for a second once it's presented.
My amendment is to change point 2. Could you go back up, please, to the point that has been changed? Yes, my amendment is to change point 2 to the following. I have sent it to the officers.
You sent it to the officers.
Yes, I said. I'll read it out while they're finding it. Point 1, there's 2 points in this, so 2A and 2B. 2A and 2B. So point 2, amend Council's resolution of item 59.2 at the 24th of May 2017 special meeting of Council 2 in speech marks. Reduce the combined salary and on-costs figures total proposed for the 2017-18 to the levels of 2015-16, and that the CEO prepare a report for Council on a range of options for how this can be achieved. End of speech marks. Point 2, notify the submitter, Meg Edward, of this decision. That was 2A to Meg Knight. Meg Knight. I have had advice from the MAB that we are allowed to direct the CEO to reduce the overall staff costs. This would be in line with what the original vote was, where 6 councillors voted to reduce the staff costs. It was worded as EFT.
No,
I'm moving to it was worded as EFT. So this fixes that. I have advice from the MAB that we rewording it as reducing staff costs is complying with the Local Government Act.
So we have it up on the board.
Yeah, that's correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So do we have a second to that?
I'll second.
Councillor McKeown, seconds. Comes the motion now.
We're at the amendment.
Councillor Hill, wishes to speak. Right.
Okay, so going back to the 24th of May meeting, we heard the submitters from the Section 2-3 process. We then had 7 days without any time for councillors to discuss anything amongst themselves, no allocated time, before we had to vote this through at the council meeting. So this was one of the, I remember that day it went on until like 8 o'clock at night, because we didn't have the time to prepare our amendments in advance. They had to virtually be done on the day. Now I did prepare mine in advance, but unfortunately we had no time to discuss amongst ourselves. This was approved with the EFT notation. Now, this amendment here fixes that from the point of view of allowed direct the staff, the CEO to change the EFT levels, but we are allowed to direct the staff to reduce how much we pay the staff in total. Now, it's important to note that in the budget, the CEO has already acted on that motion from the 24th of May and made the changes. So if we don't accept this amendment today, we'll be increasing the staff salary ourselves after the CEO has put a budget out there which has reduced the staff costs by that amount. What will the community think of that? The CEO did not put up any resistance in the May meeting and say, yeah, you can't do that. He's done it. The only thing left to be done from this is to bring the report back about how he's going to do it, and I don't see he would have any problems at all doing that. So this is in line with the vote on the day. The thought that those 6 councillors voted for it, it makes it compliant with the Local Government Act. I'm all for making things compliant. In this case, it looks like we didn't get it right on the day because we didn't have the time to get it right. And there's other examples here today where we didn't have time to get things worked out and see what happens. So I'll put this to my fellow councillors. This is what the community wants, and I've had feedback from the community since that May meeting. And I'm sure others around the table must have too. They were very much appreciative of what we've done. how is it going to look if the press wrote up, oh, the council's actually put it back up again? No, I don't think they want that. They're quite, in fact, some people were quite surprised that she did that. Something happened in this council that they've been wanting for a long time. It's a small figure, but it's making a direction statement and the community like it. So I support this. I hope everyone around the table supports this amendment so we can talk about the budget itself, which has got so many good things in it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hill.
Procedural, please. Procedural.
Procedural.
No,
Didn't we already decide on this?
Procedural, Mr Mayor. Point of order.
Just hang on a minute, thanks, Councillor Brunt. Just so Councillors, just to clarify, we ruled on the original one, which related to EFT numbers, which is different to what Councillor Hill has just proposed, where we talk about ruling on salaries as a whole.
Procedural.
yes.
Procedural, Mr Mayor. You cannot amend the council resolution of item 59 as it has been voted down. How can you now amend it? That is badly, poorly worded, and you can't enact that. I'm sorry.
Point of order.
You amended something that's been voted down.
Point 74, contradiction of opinion. Writing to express any difference of opinion or to contradict the speaker will not be treated as a point of order. Councillor Brunt was out of line standing up there and saying that.
Did you have a point of order, Councillor?
Well, we'll get that, and I'm not out of line by saying it's procedural, and the motion doesn't read correctly. You cannot amend a resolution of item 5.92 that's previously been voted down. It's gone.
I understand it's a new motion.
It's a new motion.
It's a new motion.
It says amend council resolution.
I also say that.
I believe you've got to just wipe off the first two lines. I'm sorry.
Mr Mayor, we have to amend that original motion. This is correct. And
So perhaps if would you be happy, Councillor, if that was just remove the amendment and,
The first two lines is the thing that's the problem.
yeah.
What's the
right, take out the first two lines up to the point reduce.
Yeah, perfect.
You can't say that.
That makes sense.
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, take it out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You happy with that, Councillor?
that makes sense. That's fine.
You don't need to speak over again,
No.
okay? Councillor McKeown?
Given the time, I'll try and be as brief as I
Do you
can.
wish to reserve this one?
No, I don't wish to reserve it. I just want to make a point. There is a strong community sentiment saying that we should start to look at cost savings and efficiencies. This provides for that. I would point out that the previous council for 2 years had a 1% productivity bonus, and the CEO and his executive team were more than able to meet it. This is symbolic, but it's the change that the community was looking for, that we actually start to address the cost of operations, and I believe that this is worthwhile, and it simply restores in a different way, in a legal form, what the incentive was, what the intention was previously.
Thank you, Councillor McKeown. Any councillors? Councillor Rich? Councillor Rich?
I think that this is a motion to, in some ways procedural, to fix up some of the issues that we've had in the past, in terms of we have intent. Now this is, I'd like to talk about that intent, which is the purpose of this. I've noticed around this chamber today a number of people trying to use tactics and use of the actual procedural laws, not necessarily in the best interest of an outcome, but to get their own. I'm not 100% sure, because this is the outcome we're here to deliver. We're here to deliver something for our shire and for our community. Now, if we were having the right debates in the right way about the right issues, then I have no problems. You're more than welcome to use procedures as you will, but it is the intent that gets revealed when you use motions and laws in a way that does not achieve that outcome. And I think that that is transparent for all to see here today, that those that have stood up to go for what, there was grandstanding some of the things that we've had here today, because we need to make
Point of
sure.
order. Oh, the councillors need to go with it. It's absolute point of order.
Yeah.
What is the point?
63, sorry.
We're voting on that rather than the motion, absolutely.
You know, in favour is point of order, councillor Rich, just on
I'll call 106 in a minute.
And that was my point. Thank you very much.
Are you speaking on the budget, Jeremy?
Any other speakers? Councillor Edwards?
I haven't spoken, I just thought mine was a debate. I haven't spoken, so I'd like to speak.
Councillor Edwards, please.
I'd like to speak against the motion. Right. I understand the sentiment of where this is coming from, and I'm not against the sentiment of productivity gains. However, I don't believe that even doing it this way is actually going to get the outcome necessarily that what you might be looking for. Well, the councillors that are putting it forward. So, because it's up to the CEO how he or she, or in this case he, delivers the services that we are asking to be delivered. So if they're not being done through salary, they can be done through other means of, potentially contractors or other things to deliver services. That could end up being even more expensive. So I think, look, I'm supportive of the intent of reducing overall operational costs. If that's the way you want to go down on productivity, but I can't support reducing the salary per se because of its prescriptiveness. And I recognise that it's not necessarily against the law now, and it's not in breach of the Local Government Act. However, the intent is not going to get the outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Butler? Speaking for or against?
I'm not sure yet. I'm just speaking. When we start getting into this, we're going to reduce this salaries. This sounds good. This sounds really good. And I met someone in the supermarket, one of the group the other day, and I said, sounds good, doesn't it? It sounds really good. But what is it really going to do? Because what the problem is, we could well go below that because of the change in service levels. We could go well below this reduce the combined salary and on costs because we're going to quite possibly have a reduce in service levels of HAP and whatever else. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. I'm just saying there's a maybe here. There's quite a few services on the table, I'll write it like that, that may have a different level. So when we start saying that we do it for that level, we might want to go below it. We may want to go below it. So we're setting a direction which is not necessary when we make the decisions. When we make the decisions in council, that will achieve that maybe tenfold over. There might, who knows? We don't actually, it'll happen by itself. We didn't need to have that in there.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other councillors wish to speak? No?
Please.
Yeah. Mr.
Mr. Mayor, just to say that the words have changed, but the impacts are much, much greater. The salary component between the 2 years is much different from the EFT of the 2 years. 2 EFT and the salary components doesn't align like for like. So you probably want to be aware of what that physically looks like and check up in the budget document before you make a decision.
Mr. Mayor, do you want to suspend standing orders for 5 minutes? I'm happy to put a figure in there of 1% rather than I accept what the CEO just said. We're talking about inflation of wages. I wasn't about that. So I'm happy to put a figure of 1% in if you want to keep the numbers, the words there.
Councillor Hills just asked to suspend while we look at that. So, wish to move that we suspend, Councillor Hill? No. Second for that.
I'm happy just to change the wording to include 1% reduction in some costs to take account of that.
That's another amendment.
That's
Yeah, we've already spoken on it. You can't amend an amendment.
I think we should.
This is an amendment, Mr. Mayor. It's procedural. You can't amend an amendment.
Very good. So I'd like to continue, Councillor Hill.
No, it's not unfortunate. It's just a slight extra reduction in the cost. It's not significant, it's a slight.
procedure, whether it has to go to a motion or after.
We go after this. How many have we got to go? Can I just block the rest of the street? Yes. I mean, seriously, it's getting ridiculous. Oh, this is ridiculous. This is a waste of time because of.
No, don't do it.
Where are we at? 5. Suspended again, are we not going on to another? We're not suspended standing orders? Are we in suspension of standing orders at the moment, or we just?
No, actually,
Mr. Mayor, I don't believe we suspended standing orders, so perhaps call councillors back to the table. Just a quick look at the budget comprehensive income statement, the expenses component under employee costs. It actually works out to be about $600,000, which is a little bit more than 2 people. So $600,000 is that's. Oh, we go back an extra year.
Yeah.
Oh, that's even probably getting up over $1 million now.
Are you listening, councillor?
Sorry.
So no, I've just looked at 1 year's gap. It's about 600,000. If you go back to 15-16, extrapolating that, probably over $1 million. Mr. Strange, but we'd have to get Tom to go and look
Mr. Mayor, that's 2% of our rates. No, 1.5% of our rates.
Anyway, that's
So that is quite acceptable. It's 1.5% of our rates, so that's an acceptable figure, as it is.
So, as it is,
It's a billion.
where that
It's not a
amount just
Over how long?
Are we,
So, Chairman,
yes, are we talking on the motion?
We don't get our standing orders before we start.
No,
so we spoke about what that would look like on in the previous motion regard to 2.5 EFT.
yes, I have that.
That relating back to a monetary value in this current motion.
Are we continuing to talk about this?
Yes, we're still in motion.
So that's my,
Do you wish to speak?
yes, I do.
Thank you.
Can we have
Someone previously speak?
No.
Are we in?
So we'll still continue with this motion, please.
Okay. I'd like to say that once again, for exactly the same reasons that the previous amended motion was put down, we do not know the impact of that. We've just heard 2 or 3 different versions of what that might mean to us right here at this table right now. So the very same argument that our fellow councillors are using to say, don't make policy, don't do this on the fly, is being enacted here. I will not be supporting this motion. Not that I don't want to see the better economies in our staffing. Absolutely I do. But I won't support that because I don't fully understand, and I have not seen it in the budget to model it against, worded like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Skinner. Any else, please?
Ask that you put it to the vote.
Mr. Mayor, I think
That number
one
again.
council went out thinking we were on suspended standing orders or something.
It's unfortunate.
So I think you better call
I
it
don't
out.
think we don't suspend
So-
standing orders.
We've had number of speakers against and for, so it can go back to the, doesn't need to go.
Mr. Mayor, when you send an officer to get him, he's gone out under false understanding.
You're making an assumption that
Yes, everyone was walking around the room.
they weren't. We were at the table.
I think we're here and now. I think we need to, do you wish to conclude, given that you
Can you
move?
send an officer to them?
We're not
Please
his
step on
babysitters.
the motion.
One we are.
You moved it. You've got 5 minutes.
Andrew. We can do it.
What? Fair enough.
Well,
We haven't moved that we're suspending standing orders.
rebutting what Councillor Skinner just said, this is not anything on the fly. This is just fixing up the result from the vote today about the 24th of May meeting. And it's quite a clear one. It's one sentence. It says, to take account of what the council voted through on the day on the 24th of May, and to make it compliant with the Local Government Act, we change the reference from EFT to salary costs. That's all it does. That's all it does. Now, the amount is not onerous.
Order. Can I just clarify a question? This is an amendment, isn't it?
Correct.
Yes.
And on an amendment, my understanding is you don't have a right to reply, and I've asked the motion to be put.
Correct. It was an amendment, I believe it was.
So we have
It is an amendment, it's my motion.
Did we just remove that bit that said it?
And Councillor Hill has already spoken, I think, has he? Move the amendment.
It's a new motion.
Mr. Mayor,
No,
it's not a new motion, there is an amendment.
It is an
Councillor
amendment,
Hill's put
it
an
was
amendment to the motion of Councillor Brunt moved.
Moved, yes.
The amendment before the council now is part 2, reduce the combined salary part. That's the amendment. Councillor Edwards has also said that the motion now be put, and that is a procedural motion that must be voted on.
I apologise, Councillor Edwards. I believe
Did
that
Councillor
was a
Edwards
motion.
speak on this?
She wanted it.
No, I'm only voting for government.
You're moving for it to go to vote.
Happy for it to go to vote.
Okay, so we have the
It's only stalling anyway.
Yeah.
Councillor Hill's motion. We've all done time, overtime, none of them are working. Okay.
They're running hot.
Here they are running hot.
So, Councillor Edwards, are you withdrawing your motion now be put?
No, I'm happy for it to be put.
Okay, so that means we now have to vote on that it's now going to be put. Okay, vote on that bit.
Okay, so all those
Now
in
you're
favour?
voting on that the motion should now be put.
And then we vote on the motion.
Correct. No? We go straight into it.
We can go straight to the vote. If you can accept it now be put.
Yeah, Councillor Hill's second. So, yep. We'll vote on it. That motion that appears up on the screen.
It's amendment.
Amendment, sorry, that appears on the screen.
We've got to get the amendment to become the motion if it goes up.
Sure. Be put to the vote.
Yep.
All those in favour?
What are we voting for?
You should be voting on if it be put, because if a
If
formal
it be
motion
put,
which is
put,
carried
put,
respect of an original motion, that's it, it's got to be put. So everyone agrees that it's got to be put, that's
Yeah.
unanimous.
Yes.
Yeah,
Now
right.
you may vote
Now
Now
on
we're
the
voting on the
amendment.
motion on the screen.
On the amendment.
Sorry, on the
We're voting on
screen.
Councillor Hill's amendment
Okay.
to my motion.
So all those in favour of Councillor Hill's motion on the screen?
The
Amendment
amendment
on the screen.
is Councillor McEwen, Councillor Hill, Councillor Brown, Councillor Rich, Councillor Argento.
No, those against?
Councillor Brunt, Councillor Skinner, Councillor Edwards and Councillor Kill.
The motion has been passed.
The motion has now, the amendment has now become the motion. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yep.
Now we vote on that.
No, they're done. Finished. The budget is now, the
Thank you, we get to move on.
yep.
No.
Now you go and vote on the whole lot.
Does someone else have to?
No,
No,
it's,
it just needs to be voted on.
Let's do it.
Mr Mayor, the motion now before council is the original motion put by Councillor Brunt, which has now been amended by Councillor Hill. So,
there's a new motion
there's now a
before the
new
chair.
motion before the chair, so we start the process
Process
again.
again. Absolutely.
Hopefully without everyone talking.
Councillor Hill?
So we're talking about the budget now.
Councillor,
It's my motion.
it's Councillor Brunt's motion, it's now got an
been
amendment.
amended.
Councillor Brunt's already. Councillor.
The process starts again, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, it's been amended, so you've already spoken on it, I think you keep
But it's
running.
mine, I can
It's still yours,
wind up.
yeah. So councillors, Tom has just clarified that's $1.5 million that will move out of the budget. So, there you go, 1.5 million, and that will be an interesting report for sure. But,
What's it, what, could you wind that back, what it actually said? Did it say to do it or to bring a report?
So now we have,
What else can be done?
yeah,
Reduce the capacity.
now we have the motion before council.
I'd like to move an amendment.
You sure can.
I sure can.
Another amendment.
Can you roll the screen down, please? Where the amendment. Number 2, I'd like to reduce, redo the order so that you bring the report, so that it says bring a report
On how to achieve
how to achieve it
before doing it.
before doing it, because why would you do something that you don't know what you're doing? So you bring the report first. I want to change that. You bring a report on how that could be achieved. You don't say, I'm doing it, and then bring me a report.
Well, no, you want to change it to 16, 17, because then it reduces the amount that's more manageable.
Well, just bring, yes. And Councillor McEwen has suggested, and I'll go with that. Instead of 15, 16, 16, 17 on that number 2, please. That's my amendment.
I'll second that.
Is someone not spoken on the budget? Right, could you now put it?
Yeah, okay.
I've had bad news and I need to go. All right.
You wish to speak on this?
No, we just vote on it. We're going to vote on it.
You happy to
Just
go
happy
with
to
it?
go for a vote.
Okay. So is it up there yet, or you have to just do what you
It
say?
needs to be changed on the board to 16, 17, not 15, 16.
Yeah, and into there. That bit, please take that. I'm happy to put this amendment to the vote. I think we all understand what I'm saying.
Yep.
And then could you put the,
Yeah,
A report,
I just
yeah.
said
When
that,
we
I'll
get
bring
it.
it to
Yeah,
vote.
she's changed it. Right. And then the rest of it comes after Anne comes out. That's all
Yeah, we got that? Okay, all those in favour of that amendment? It's unanimous.
right. Now put the,
Mr. Mayor, there's another spanner.
what's the spanner?
What is the other standard?
Mr. Mayor, the current budget, because as that reads, adopt the annual budget attachment 6.4.1. 6.4.1 has already been amended to include the EFT reduction, so we still need to make a note of item 2, which Don just changed initially. We still need to say that the old 0.5, and accurate whatever that was sometime ago, goes back to
It is a little bit.
Are you happy with that, Councillor Hunt?
Can I amend?
Councillor Brock, you want- Councillor Brock?
It's all right, it's all right.
Councillor, you wish to include that into your amendment? You happy to do that? So we can vote on that as well?
Is that being inserted into the amendment? before
No,
the
it'll be-
vote on, or is
it'll
it
be-
Part of
the
Councillor
motion
Brock's
before the
original.
chair?
the motion before the chair.
Thank you.
It's the amendment before the chair, we've got to make the motion, yeah.
No,
Yeah,
it's
the
already-
amendment's been
it's already
passed.
voted.
Oh, right, we're putting another little bit in, yes, that's right, sorry. I was at we've amended it. And we've amended it. We've accepted the amendment and now it's just, I'm just explaining this to people. I'm happy to accept it in the.
If it gets accepted by the mover and the seconder.
I'm happy. And who was the seconder? Don, he seconded, so go. Did someone get a photo of that? No, please don't. It was too quick. Did they have? Could
Jackson. Live.
It was your shot.
I guess it's live too, that's true. This is all.
Okay, so we're clear now. We're able to move on, or do we require that?
Have we got the
Can
right
I
thing?
clarify that the changes to the budget that were reflected in our decision at point 2 this morning
Yes.
are now
Reflected here.
Right, thank you.
That's all.
I would like to put that to the vote then.
No, you can't, because you've spoken on it. She can.
Yeah, I'll put it to.
Yep, councillor Keolis put to the vote, seconded by councillor McKellen. To the vote, all those in favour?
Mr Mayor,
Please excuse me, Mr. Reed. I'm leaving. I've just personal reasons.
I'm just thinking, we need to the store before you can.
So we'll move on, 6.5.
we just got that jiggered around a bit there. Councillor's happy to move. Yeah, but we
Block the lot together, yeah, sure.
I'm sure it'll be a very controlled meeting
Yeah.
by councillors.
All right, we're nearly halfway through the agenda.
6.5.
I will move that.
Council Skinner, community satisfaction survey, notes of South Gippsland Shire. Council results in the 2017 community satisfaction survey. These are the relevant results in South Gippsland Shire annual report 2016-17. Moved by Councillor Skinner, seconded by Councillor McKeown. Councillor Skinner, you can speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. These community satisfaction surveys form one way of reflecting on council and council operations. It's undertaken by an independent survey consultant, and I think from memory there's about 400 or so
Councillors, could you please respect Councillor Skinner to speak?
people who were surveyed. Interestingly, when you drill down into the results, 43% of those people who commented on council's customer service, I think it was, actually hadn't had any contact with council within the last 12 months. So whilst these results are useful, particularly in terms of areas for opportunity, as our mayor likes to call it, and improvement, and there's no doubt that they're not very good results. I will fully say that. Equally, it is one part that forms a picture of our operations. So, you know, I guess we can only go up from here. Hopefully that, you know, this was undertaken in February, I think, this year, and we were a relatively new council by then. So I think perhaps people might have been reflecting on some of the areas that they had felt disgruntled about in the past, and particularly roads was a bad feature. And I think one of those things is people are unsure about where Shire roads are, where big roads are, etc. However, it's not great results. There were, you know, definitely areas for improvement. However, it's been done. It's a suite of information that we can use to inform our progress going forward. So I'm happy to adopt it, and that the results go on the website, and they'll also go out on the Nottingham Council website too. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor McKeown.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this is a measure of people's perception of the brand reputation of council. Look at it, it's been stationary and declining slightly over 7 years. It is something that we have to address and change. But I believe the council's plan that we've sort of worked on together, if it's implemented, as Councillor Rich said, in a collaborative way and constructive manner, I believe that this will turn around. I It is fundamental that we engage the community more closely when we do work. It is interesting to note two things. One, the Bass Coast that had a significant input that was in thousands on social media and I think 200 or 300 in meetings, had a 5% rise in their satisfaction for, I think, community engagement. And when indeed in an earlier reincarnation, and I was here as a director, when we did the sustainability strategy and consulted 2,000 people, we had a similar rise. The lesson from this is that we have to be genuine about engaging and partnering and consulting. If we do that, I believe the community will come with us and these will turn around.
Thank you, Councillor McKeown. Councillor Hill.
Yes, look, Councillor Skinner, let me reassure you it's not your fault.
No.
I didn't expect these results to be any better, really, because this is really a reflection on the last 12 months, and we've only been a new council here in the last 6 months. And seriously, if people think that someone can be elected as councillor and then suddenly make the changes happen overnight without learning the process, I'd be quite surprised if they thought that. My conversations with people in the community is they expect a bit of time to transition. One thing I do note from is continued downtrend in all the results from the past, but the one that ticked up is the one that said direction of council. I think what people said when they ticked those boxes there was they recognised the council's now changed its direction, partly from them kicking the other councils out, but they do accept that this council is trying to make a new way. So what I think will happen in 12 months' time, after they've started to see some of the changes we've made that were put into the plan and in this budget, that you'll start to see those figures turn around on all the indicators. And I'd be quite surprised if after 4 years of this council with the agenda we are setting ourselves, we are becoming a cohesive body. With the agenda we're setting, I would be very surprised if those satisfaction figures in 4 years' time are not vastly improved. That's what I would say.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. Any other councillors wish to comment? No? And Councillor Skinner, you move?
I would just like to move that we vote on that, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favour?
Unanimous, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Good go, good go.
So moving on to 6.6.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we move 6.6, 6.7 and... No, those two in block.
I'd like to add a few more into that.
And miss out, yeah.
So we've got 6.8.
All of them except for 6.8, I suppose.
No, 6.11 is, I need to speak on that one.
Okay, so 6.6 to 6.7 and then 6.9 to 6.11.
Okay, so 6.6 to 6.7.
Sorry,
we'll
yeah,
move.
yeah.
6.6 and 6.7. 6.6 and 6.7.
And it's the 11th one you want to
Does anybody want to speak on the 6.8? Are we happy to move that one in block two?
Yeah, no.
Okay, so that's fine.
Yep, so Councillor Skinner, you wish to speak?
No,
Straight to the
just
vote?
put it straight to the vote.
All those in favour?
Oh,
Okay, second was Councillor Hill.
Thank you.
Carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Go to 6.8. Okay, procurement and MAV like project. So who wishes to move that? That's self-saying, yeah, I'm going participation in GLGN and MAV procurement like project.
I'll move that.
Councillor Skinner. And seconder,
I'll go.
Councillor McKeown. Okay, wish to speak, Councillor Skinner.
Very briefly, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I thought this was just a little bit more than procedural in that it's quite an interesting project that we're undertaking with the Gippsland, the GLGN, Gippsland Local Government Network. Thank you. And I think I've got the feeling that we're the pilot, aren't we? Yes, no, we're driving. We're doing a great job. This is about shared.
Go team, go.
The co-pilot then. Sorry. It's about shared procurement, basically, economies of scale. So some of the, yeah, I'm not going to read those out, I can read them, but I think it's just worthwhile noting that we're working on that kind of economies with our neighbouring tribes to work out where we can share resources, where we can do, that's enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sinner. Councillor Gill.
Sorry.
I'd just like to add that I think the benefits of this procurement policy will be evident in the next number of years. And it's a wonderful project that brings all our local councils together and enable us to procure services at a hopefully reduced price and then ensuring that our ratepayers get benefit of that. Okay. So, happy for to go to the vote? Yep. All those in favour?
Unanimous, Mr Mayor.
I'll move 6.9 and 6.10.
6.9 to 6.10.
I'll second it.
Seconded, Councillor Keir.
I'll go straight to vote.
Straight to the vote with that. Councillor
Date, time stamp on our.
So 6.11.
There's a procedural type amendment, Mr Mayor, through you, I've asked Natasha to put up the amendment for 6.11.
Do I have a seconder for that one as well?
Hang on.
Well, we don't even know what it is.
It's a library.
So it relates to the West Gippsland Regional Library Corporation and resignation of committee, councillor committee member, and the word one. Councillor Skinner, you happy to second that? Okay, Councillor Roberts.
I'm happy to speak on it if anybody would like explanation, but effectively it's just because of a business interest that I've had prior to, the library board's fantastic, but I've had a business interest prior to being on council that I'm still interested in, and it's an area that also that the library is also exploring, so I've indicated that perhaps it's better that I just step down. So it's a preemptive step there. However, in terms of the date that becomes effective from, so Councillor Skinner has indicated that she's interested in stepping up. She was the substitute member for that board, and she's interested in stepping up to that, and then it would be Councillor Brunt who would be her substitute. But as Councillor Skinner can't attend the meeting on the 7th, we have got an amendment to the motion that was put in the agenda so that I would attend that meeting on the 7th, which has, I've spoken to the chair this morning, there's no items that we think would be a conflict at all. It just tidies it up, means that I finish off that role, and then the next meeting would be, rather than having chopping change in councillors, and that Councillor Skinner would attend the next meeting in the next normal meeting, which is I think scheduled for August. So it's the one that's currently scheduled, the special meeting to adopt the library board's budget in currently scheduled for the 7th of July.
So thank you, Councillor. Is that date up there?
We've actually taken the date out of there because it's actually subject to each of the what do you call it? Well, the council representation. So each of the councils that are part of the library board, that's Coast Board and South Gippsland, to adopt the West Gippsland Regional Library Corporation budget is dependent upon each of those councils adopting their budget. So if one of those councils do not adopt their budget, it may actually change the date. So we've taken the date out and just left it as, effective after that special meeting, if that makes sense.
So, thank you, Councillor Skinner.
Don't need to speak on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, we put it straight to the vote. All those in favour?
Unanimous, Mr Mayor.
Okay. 6.12, council allowances.
I'll move that.
Councillor Skinner. Want a seconder?
I'll second it.
Councillor McKeown. Councillor Skinner, wish to speak?
I don't need to say too much. Acknowledging that we are supposedly at the higher end of our spectrum, I think we're worth it.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Skinner. Councillor McKeown, no wish to speak, and just reminding everyone that it also goes up to 223 for public and open the public to actually apply and recommend in the recommendation. So, okay, so put that one to the vote. All those in favour?
Unanimous, Mr Mayor.
Okay, moving on to.
We're up to Assembly of Councillors.
8.1. Okay, Assembly of Councillors. Received the notice of report and
I move that way.
Councillor McGowan,
Second.
second Councillor Rich.
Move that it be put to me.
Like to speak to it?
Oh.
Councillor McGowan, do you wish to?
No. I'll keep it brief.
I bow to my fellow councillors.
I just wanted to make a
Can I
point.
get that on record? Oh, I've got it on record. Sorry.
So, count my fellow councillors, I'd like to make the point that this month we don't have a confidential clause on the Economic Development Committee. That was voted out last month and hasn't been put back. And I also, from the press's point of view, there are discussions on changing the planning committee so that most of that can be put forward as not confidential as well. So there are changes being made, so that's all I want to say.
Anybody else wish to speak? Go ahead, second Councillor Rich. Happy for it to have a vote?
Yep.
Those in favour?
All those in
I
favour?
can get your hand up to tie.
Don's not in favour, of
Don's
course
not.
not. Okay. Councillor Skinner, Councillor Jetto, Councillor Brown, Councillor Rich, Councillor Kill,
And those against?
Councillor Hill and Councillor Edwards.
Brain big fellow.
Okay.
And then
8.2, documents sealed and awarded represented by the CEO.
I move that.
Council receives the notice report.
I second it.
Moved by Councillor McKeown, seconded by Councillor Hill. Wish to speak?
Proceed. Yeah.
Proceed. Excuse me, Councillor Hill. Okay, put it to the vote. All those in favour?
Unanimous, Mr Mayor.
Okay. Item 3.
Closed session go.
So, 8.3, financial performance reports. The council receives a note, the financial performance report attached, and
I move
reviewed
that
by
way, Mr Mayor.
I'll second it.
Warren and Councillor Rich, second. Do you wish to speak on it?
No.
I do.
Oh.
Councillor Hill.
I'd like to mention a few things from the executive summary. Operating result 6.65 million surplus. Capital works 17 million being expended. Cash assets of 16 million. Projected financial outcome for 16-17 is 12.6 million surplus. And rate cap is still 2%. I think we're doing very good. Thank you all the officers and finance team and everyone else involved. But South Gippsland Shire is in a good financial position. It allows this council to put in effect the plan that we've got voted through today and the budget.
I do note that there's still plenty of grants included in there that haven't been expended on, and that's why the figure appears to be so high.
No.
Okay. Any other speakers?
Second.
To a vote.
Second.
Secondary.
To the vote.
To the vote?
Yeah.
All those in
The
favour?
vote. It's unanimous, Mr Mayor.
Council reports. Request for leave of absence
I request a leave of absence for the July meeting.
for the July meeting. Thank you, Councillor Rich. Any other requests from Council for leave of absence? No?
Seconder.
Yeah, seconder.
Councillor Skinner.
He's not going to give him his leave of absence.
Councillor Skinner.
Councillor Skinner. All those in favour? Councillor Rich going on leave in July.
Oh, I thought everyone would have said yes.
Okay, committee updates.
She was writing me upset she didn't get to vote on that one.
No committee updates.
No committee updates, Mr Mayor.
Council
Yeah,
updates.
that might top me if it's too
I'll
much.
just briefly note something, Mr Mayor. I'm not a full report.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I will actually table the report, which I'll get to Natasha. But just to flag three key things. All of Council attended the Future Local Government Conference in Melbourne directly after our last meeting for 2 days. That had some odd bells and whistles, is the best way I can put it. There was a community engagement conference in Leongatha Saturday a week ago, which was fantastic, and also a wonderful event last night in Main Street Meeting about revitalising towns. But the main thing I'll actually be tabling my report on will be the National General Assembly of Councillors that I away for last week's briefings for Canada that Director Faith and I attended, and that was a wonderful thing that I'd like to table the outcomes of and the benefits of going to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Is there any other council reports?
I will table a report on the Destination Gippsland Tourism event, which was held week before last. It was a particularly good event, very well structured, well run. A number of the presenters were very poignant and to date with how we can look at and change and work with our fellow neighbouring shires. I'd like to put a report together which I'll submit for council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Rich. Councillor Kearney, for a report.
I'll try and do it in 10 seconds. I think we've had two fantastic, one is the local food festival or event that had 160 people at. It was very, very positive in various spoke. The other one that was really interesting was the one at Fish Creek on batteries and renewable energy systems. It had over, I think, around about 110 people at, and that was very healthy as well.
Thank you, Councillor Kearney. Any other council reports? I have one briefly here. Councillors, I recently attended a meeting of the Long Jetty Project Control Group at Port Washington. This group consists of representatives from many of the stakeholders, as well as local identity Paul McPhail. Paul represents the local community. Paul has been a tireless advocate for the Long Jetty project for many years, and his input into this project has been well received. At the recent meeting, the working group, the PCG members, unanimously recommended a preferred tenderer to the board of Gippsland Ports. And my understanding is that the board of Gippsland Ports has now met and endorsed that tenderer, and there'll shortly be a media release in relation to who that is. And I expect that we'll be in a position to make an official stop turning ceremony in the very near future. Thank you. Okay, urgent or other business? Do you have any urgent or other business?
Mr. Mayor.
Okay, petitions and joint letters. There is one petition. Located amongst all this local law guide. Okay. Councillors, I've been asked to table a petition by Sue Shergold from Waratah Bay. I'll just read out the prayer on the petition. We, the undersigned, are concerned citizens who urge our leaders to act now to ensure the Waratah Bay Caravan Park be managed by private enterprise where it can be financially viable, support local tourism and negate the financial burden on taxpayers. To consult with stakeholders of the South Gippsland Caravan Parks to devise fair and more achievable guidelines that achieves maximum usage in our Crown land caravan parks, which ultimately benefits local businesses dependent on tourism. Point 3, demand transparency from Council regarding future plans for the Waratah Bay Caravan Park and therefore be held accountable for their actions. Councillors, this petition will be tabled and I believe a report will be back next month in regards to the petition. Thank you. Okay.
I'll move that.
Recommendation.
Seconded.
Yep.
Seconded. Moved by Councillor Hill, seconded by Councillor Rich.
Okay, moved by Councillor Hill, seconded by Councillor Rich. You wish to speak on it, Councillor? No? Councillor Rich?
Only very briefly is to say that we're considering, when we're considering the management of all caravan parks on the Waratah Bay in conjunction with Dwell at the moment, and so that this will be taken into account when we look at those things into the future.
Thank you, Councillor Rich. Is there anyone else wish to speak? Okay, put it to the vote. All those in favour?
Petition table.
Unanimous,
To be
Mr.
tabled,
Mayor.
yes. To be tabled.
John did have his hand up.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, submitted public questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have two submitted questions from Mr. Ralph Gallagher, who was here to probably about half an hour or so ago. I did note that he was leaving, so I went and had a quick word to him. His questions relate to our council's reserve accounts and the quantum of funds in each. which is detailed on page 89 and 90 of the council budget, and also relates to correspondence previously provided to him, and he's asking for to get a copy of that correspondence. And I've mentioned to him, I did have a little look in our records management system. There seems to be a bit of a mix-up of the correspondence, so he's agreed to meet with me, and we're going to sit down and try and organise or work out what's going on with the correspondence to try and resolve his queries. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No other questions? Is that anyone?
That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So answers to previous questions are noticed. Is that
There are some there, Mr. Mayor, just for council to note.
It's 12, moving to closed session. The council closed the meeting to the public to allow for consideration of items that were listed in the
I have a question related to the question which I have my hand up for.
Those questions.
I'm just wondering how the question. Okay.
I'll move the motion.
Yeah, so councillor Hell moves that we move into closed session. Seconded councillor Rich. All those in favour of that?
Unanimous, Mr. Mayor.
Two members of the media.